Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. We're going to be painting a poppy flower today. Here are our colors. Let's get started. So first we're going to take maybe like a small round. I have a number 5 round, and I find that it helps me to start off my flower paintings with just like a rough outline of the shape of the outside petals. So by the way, this is a 11 by 14 inch canvas. The one that I used last week for the painting was a 10 by 10, and I like that a lot, but I don't have any more of those. So we're just gonna like sketch out this the outside of the outside shape. It doesn't have to be perfect. We just want to know where things go. And I'm using the permanent red for this part of it, just because it's easier for me. We got this. And like I said, this doesn't have to be perfect. We'll refine it and fix it later. And I'm making it a little bit bigger than I did last week, only because I didn't like how small the top flower was in relation to the bottom one. So I want to try to make it a little bit bigger. I think I'll like it a lot better. But you can do it bigger or smaller, depending on what you like. I'll also put a link to the reference photo in the description if you guys want to look at that. And the reference photo is just that. It's just a reference. I don't try to copy it exactly, but I'd like to have something as a reference. Okay, and then this bottom flower. That's the basic outline. Okay, and then from here, we can work on our background. I'm gonna add on some colors, ultramarine blue. I forgot to put that in the color list, but I'll add it in later. So ultramarine blue I want to use for the background, mixed with a little bit of titanium white. And for my backgrounds, I just use like a really scruffy brush, an old brush, and I just want to get the paint on the canvas. So I'm not too particular about how it goes on or anything like that. You can use whatever color you want. I just like this bluish color, like a light bluish colors. You know, you can mix a little bit of umber to bring it down, to bring the tone down a little bit. So we'll just go around the outside petals. If some of the red gets in there, don't worry about it. can always fix stuff later once it dries. If you get it over top. And you'll know that this, you'll see that this comes together pretty quick. It's not a very detailed flower. Even though it's still a beautiful flower, it's not, there's not a lot to them. And I love these poppy flowers. They're the birth flower of August. So I don't know if you guys knew that, but, and I'm just doing different mixtures of the ultramarine blue, raw umber, and white, just to give it a little variation. And I'm just scumbling it across the canvas. Like, I'm not really paying attention to the direction of my strokes or anything like that. I'm not being too like precious about it or anything. And I like when I have backgrounds that are not like all one color. It just, to me, adds a little bit of interest to the background. Also, I want to note that I'm using student grade paints. So these are a lot like more transparent than like pro paints, but they work just as well. You just have to remember that you might have to use more layers when you're using a student grade paint versus a pro paint. So we'll do this again. We'll go back over the background again once it dries. Let's get that in there. And again, you can make the background whatever color you want. I tried yellow at first when I did the time lapse, and I thought I would like it, but I didn't. So that's you. If you watch that video, you'll see me going back over that once it was dry, and I came back with the blue and a little bit of, I think it was red. I went back over the background with it. So it made it like a purpley kind of blue, but I ended up liking that better. But if you like yellow and you think it looks good with the red, go for it. Or whatever other color that you like. You don't have to do the same color as me as the background. Okay, so that's our first layer for the background, and then we'll leave it alone. Leave that alone. You can rinse out your brush. And for this next step, I think I want to use, I have a flat, it's a number 8 flat brush. And I'm just gonna block in like some of the darker reds that I see, the shadows that I see in our reference photo. So I'm gonna mix a little bit of the primary red, a little dab of the raw umber. I want a little bit more red than the raw umber, but I want it dark enough so where you can tell the difference. Reds get a little bit tricky when you're shading with them and trying to brighten them for highlights and stuff, because if you add white, it'll end up making your red pink. So I try to add like a yellow or an orange or something like that to brighten up my reds, not so much a white, because that just makes them turn pink. So we'll see from the reference, maybe a little bit more raw umber and red in that mixture. We'll see from the reference there's a petal that goes somewhere in here. If your brush is getting a little bit dry on you, just dip it a little bit in your water. little bit like that. And right now we're just getting all of the shaded areas. We have the color out already. We may as well do everything that needs to be the shaded color while we have it. We don't have to worry about trying to mix this exact color again. We have some shading over here. A little bit more of the red, a little bit more of the raw umber. And right now we're still just blocking in where we see the shaded color. This darker area is underneath the petal, so it has a shadow basically. A little bit more underneath here. A little bit more underneath here. It kind of helps me to do it this way. I'm not looking at this as a flower. I'm just looking at it as blocks of color. So it helps me not to get overwhelmed with the petals and stuff like that and trying to make everything look perfect right off the bat. I'm just more so focused on what colors I see and putting them where they belong. And then we can add details later to make the petals and stuff look like a flower. A little dark here. A little bit. I added a little bit more raw umber. There's a really dark area under here. And over on this side as well, there's some dark. I'm gonna add a little bit more raw umber. I want to make this red a little bit darker. There's some shadowy kind of folds in the petals that we want to get. And some of this will get covered up. Don't worry. There's some shadowy bits in here. We'll move on to the bottom flower in a little bit. I was kind of debating whether I wanted to add in the bottom flower for this tutorial. I didn't know if it would be too much or, you know, be kind of daunting to do both. You can leave out the bottom petal, the bottom flower, if you just want to deal with the one and get that kind of down. Just holding at the loam with that. So that's the shadowy part of that one. Shadowy part. Okay. So we'll move down to the bottom one. And there's this flower is kind of like turned over on its side a little bit. Like upside down a little bit, I guess. There's lots of little shadowy areas. So I'm still just mixing the permanent red with the raw umber. Doesn't look like much yet, but it'll come together. So you can rinse your brush out, dry it off on a paper towel. We're gonna, there's poppies have like this dark part close to the stem. So we're gonna put that in. This is just raw umber now. We're gonna put that in. It's not gonna be exact, but we wanna keep in mind where it is before we get too far going on this. And again, this is just raw umber. Some of this will get covered up. Same for the bottom. It has like if you want, you can use black for this because it is pretty dark, but I don't like to use black too much. We may as well was gonna say we can put in the stem, but I don't want to put in the stem yet. I want to, the background should be dry. So if you're not happy with your background, get your scuff-free brush again and let's go over it again. It should be dry now where you can go over it again. So again, I'm using ultramarine blue mixed with a little bit of white and a little bit of raw umber. So it gives it like a bluey kind of gray color. And I'm mixing different amounts of the white. So it'll be darker in some places, it'll be lighter in some places. And I'm fine with that. I don't mind the variations in color in my background. It ended up looking really pretty, so don't overthink it. If your brush is getting a little bit dry, at this point you don't want to use too much water. So you can get a little dab of water. Using too much water will just make the paint underneath lift. So you don't want that. That gets a little frustrating. So you just want to use a little, just a very small amount of water at this point. I'm gonna add a little bit more white over here. Got a little dark. Got a little away from me. I'm just scrubbing it in. The second coat, the second layer makes a really big difference with these student grade paints. If you don't like the shape of your petals, you can kind of fix them now if you want, or you can wait. I think I'm okay with that. If you're still not happy with it, you can wait until this layer dries and then go back over it again with a different color or more color or whatever you want to do with that. You can just let this dry and then go back over it again. But you want to do that before we start working on the stem, because we want our background to be completely dry before we work on the stem, and it'll go around and stuff like that. Okay, so we're going to go back to our flat brush. Whatever size you're comfortable with. I have a number 8. And we're gonna get some of the permanent red, and I don't know if you have vermillion. It's the orangey reddish kind of color, and I'm gonna mix a little bit of that in there with it. And now I'm gonna fill in the parts that weren't shaded. So I'm gonna fill in like the base color of the flower, which is the red. We'll still have some highlighting to do, and we'll save that for last. I just want to kind of get these colors in their right places before we start adding any type of details or highlighting. I'm mixing some more of the vermilion and the permanent red. These flowers are so pretty. Like they're simple, but they're very pretty. And I'm not a huge fan of red, but for some reason I really like these flowers. And I've only really ever seen them in red, so. Let's do. We're just putting this color all over. Like I said, we're just filling in all of the base colors. If you have any places where you can see like some of the white of the canvas shining through, just go over it. I don't want any of those holes peeking in. We're going to move on down to the bottom flower. There's not much left to this flower, just some little detailing and stuff, and you can get as detailed or as impressionistic as you want. There's really no right or wrong way to do it. I'm going over the shaded area a little bit with our red and vermilion mixture. Okay. I'm filling in some little areas that have some white spots. I can see. Bothers me when I see those. Okay, so just gonna fix this a little bit. Little water droplet spilt on my paintbrush. Don't panic if this happens to you. Just dab it off. Wait until it dries and then you can fix it later. So I'll wait to fix that. I'm going to wait until all of this dries before we do anything else to it. Right now, if your background is dry and you wanted to add some more color to it, or you wanted to change the color, go ahead and do that part right now, because next we'll be doing the stem. I'll have to let mine dry and I can fix this where the water dripped onto the canvas and kind of rubbed off. So we'll let this dry for about 10 minutes. I want it to be completely dry. And then we'll continue on. Okay, so hopefully your background is dry and you got it the way you want it. You fixed any mistakes that you had or anything like that. We're gonna go ahead and put in the stem. We're gonna use raw umber. And the stem comes out kind of like in a V at the base of this flower. And we're just gonna, I'm using my round. It's the number 5 round, I think. There's not much to it. That's the first stem. We'll do the second stem. And it comes kind of up at an angle. Comes around. Goes behind this petal a little bit. And then comes down. That's it for stem. Nothing fancy. If you want to fix any of that dark part of the flower that we did earlier. You can do that now. Okay. All right, you can rinse out that brush and we'll go back to our flat brush. And now we're gonna do some of the highlights. So we're gonna mix mostly vermilion and a little bit of red. We still want it to look red, but it's gonna be more orangish. Or you can mix it with yellow, a little bit of yellow. You don't want it to be too orange, but you want it to be more orange than your base color. So I'm gonna mix a little bit more yellow with the red and the vermilion and see how that does. Not as light as I want it. We'll go with it for now. I can definitely see, I don't know if you guys can see the difference. I can see it on my canvas. So just keep playing with it if it's not getting as light as you want. If you want to add just a little dab of white, that makes a little bit of a difference. You just don't want to go pink. You don't want it to be pink. So we're just putting in these highlights that I see in the reference photo. Going back over this base color with the lighter color. I see it's a little lighter over here. Lightening up the reds can be a little frustrating. We'll move on to the bottom flower. looking super orange. No worries, we can fix it. So I'm getting just the permanent red now, and my nails keep getting water in them. Okay. I'm getting the permanent red, and I'm going in and putting that in some of these places in between the lightest highlight and the darkest shadow. This is just the permanent red now. I'm going over some of the shadow areas that we had did with that darker mixture of raw umber, and just going over with the permanent red because it can still shine through, but it doesn't look so dark. Takes the tone down a little bit and blends with that orangey red color a little bit. And this is just light pressure I have. I'm not pressing super hard because I want it to blend. And the same over here. Just going over some of these shadowy areas with just the red, just so it blends a little bit better.